Let's start this week's streaming audio with a question. Do you remember being a beginner? Do you remember first coming into this industry and thinking, oh my God, there is so much to learn? Maybe you're still feeling that. I know I do sometimes. But I was on vacation last week and I was on a boat and I found myself wondering, do sailors ever get used to the size of the ocean? I mean, they must do, right? But just like we get used to the size of our field. But it's interesting sometimes to step back and try and see it afresh, see it with new eyes, and wonder, what do you think would matter if you saw this industry again from scratch? What would you explore first? How would you navigate your way through our ocean? Well, I had a chance to get some of that perspective fresh firsthand because we have an internship program here at Confluent. And I thought I'd ask one of our interns to be brave and come and tell us about his experience diving into this world for the first time. What did he learn? What did he need to learn? What did he do? What caught his interest? One thing he did, which I thought was really interesting, was a natural language processing application for Reddit threads. But he also had some surprising takes about balancing technical skills with soft skills and business skills. He's got a really nice perspective. If you're new to this industry, I think you're going to hear this episode and realize we're all in the same boat at the end of the day. And if you're a veteran, well, it might leave you better equipped to deal with some new hires and see things from their perspective. Before we get started, this podcast is brought to you by Confluent Developer, which is our education site for Kafka. More about that at the end, but for now, I'm your host, Chris Jenkins. This is Streaming Audio. Let's get into it. My guest today is Shufan Liu. Welcome to the show, Shufan.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. So we have got you here because, let me see if I've got this right. You are studying at the University of Pennsylvania.
Yes, for master's.
And you've come across... Yeah, you're doing a master. You've come across from a business degree to a computer science master's.
That is.
So let's start there. Why did you do that?
So I wasn't confident enough that I wasn't confident that I'm smart enough to handle technical stuff. First going into college, but I don't want to say goodbye completely to that. So I picked a couple of computer science class during the course of my undergrad, and then from those courses, I feel like, oh, that is my stuff. So I decided to study more in master programs. So I applied to one of the technical computer science program. Luckily, I got in, and then I happily started to pursue my career in technology.
Okay, so, and as part of that, you've been doing an internship with us at Confluent, right?
Yes.
Now, I was trying to think back to my days when I first went from university into industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being kind of overwhelmed by what an ocean of stuff there was to learn.
Well, I can assure you that feeling hasn't gone away. That's the same with me.
So what's the most important stuff you've been picking up?
Well, trying to find a balance between reaching out and ask people for questions and actually diving into document and try to solve the problem myself. That's a hard balance to find, but it's something important, I think, at the start of the career.
That's interesting, because I would have thought a lot of people would answer that question with something technical. But you've gone straight to the really hard stuff in computer science, which is balancing when to talk to people.
Well, that kind of concludes my struggle with technical stuff because, I ask technical stuff, reading document or reaching out to people, bothering them.
Mm. Well, one of the jobs of an intern, right, is to make sure they're grabbing information from everybody they can.
Oh, well, I hope nobody is bored of me yet, but I ask a lot of questions.
But that's good. That's good, because one of the reasons I wanted to get you in talking to us is that whole fresh perspective thing, right? Because it's hard when a lot of people listening to this podcast will have been in the industry for quite a while, maybe have used Kafka for quite a while, and we've simply forgotten what it's like to see this with fresh eyes.
Mhm. Well,
So I'm going to ask you some Kafka questions, but tell me, like, what's it like coming into a technical company for the first time?
um, everybody is so um, freelance. Like having a very chilling feeling doing their work, but they always get things done. That's something very impressive in what I discovered in tech companies.
Yeah, you think we seem relaxed on the surface?
Well, yes, but I know for sure
Okay.
that everybody's working really hard to get things done because those things are really hard to get done.
Yeah, we're just as much as anyone beating our heads against the computers and then trying to smile afterwards. Okay, so but you've come in slightly. I mean, my angle, I came in straight as like a computer science major. I think is the American term, into a programming job. You wanted to go into DevX, DevRel, like the marriage between programming and talking to people.
Well, yes.
Why choose that?
Uh, well, part of the reason is because I am new to the industry. I want to experience much as possible to discover where my interest is. Um,
Hmm.
Software engineer seems like a very heavy job for me to do at the first year, first summer intern. I know a lot of my cohort friends got internship in software engineer, but I want to try something different. I want to try, uh, you know, jobs that kind of help me with prepare me for software engineering um, career, but also give me a perspective of how the industry looks like in a bigger picture, right? Working at
Yeah.
DevX or DevRel, I have opportunity to work with the marketing team, the product management team, right? And I can learn the demand of our customer, right? That is a developer. I can try to learn what they're thinking and practice the way that I communicate with them. I think that's going to be beneficial for me in my career in the long run.
Yeah, that's a very smart perspective. I think a lot of us focus on getting really good at programming and then wake up one day and realize we actually have to talk to the rest of the company for it to be worth anything.
Well, I still envy them for having good programming skills. Yeah, I need to practice that. That's something I really want as well.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about computers is they'll hold you to account. It's the human stuff you have to kind of murkily judge your way through, right?
Yes.
So, what's it been like being an intern? What have you learned? Tell me some things.
Well, I think the first stuff is what is DevX? What is developer advocate? What do we do? Well,
Mm.
coming into Confluent before this, I had no idea what developer advocate is until I met Danica, who just introduced a whole different word to me, and I realized why it's important to company, especially to business-facing company like Confluent. I'm sure Confluent spend a lot of time without DevX team. Confluent spend a lot of time educating the developers community, and it's our job to maintain that activity and try to help them with the best knowledge as we can.
So, which parts of that did you get involved in, and which parts did you enjoy?
I enjoy writing a blog and thinking as an audience. What do they want to hear from me? What do they want to know from Confluent? And try to introduce my best knowledge to them. And that's some really good experience. And I think that's some unique experience that I wouldn't have gotten if I were a software engineering intern.
Mm. Yeah, it's something I think I mostly learnt from user interface design, but that empathy for the user is such a vital skill.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah,
Empathy is
I
also
kind of
a word.
feel your business degree sneaking in here too.
Oh
The
wow.
whole holistic, what's actually going to benefit the business perspective.
Um.
You think that's true?
Well, now you reminds me. That's probably intuitive. I didn't realize, but it comes in a just blends well with my work.
Yeah. So what was the blog post you wrote about, which I'm sure we will link to in the show notes?
I had, my internship kind of divided into two parts. The first part is working with Danica, and I try to extend her data pipeline. I wrote my first blog as a kind of like a rookie perspective, from a rookie perspective to Kafka. I specifically described the process of building a data pipeline with Apache Kafka and how to extend the data pipeline using cluster linking on Confluent Cloud.
Right. You went straight into cluster linking.
Well, yes.
That's biting off a big topic.
Well, thanks to Danica. Well, we did pretty much everything together, and she's helpful. I keep asking questions to her instead of diving into docs. So that's my cheat code.
Well, I don't think we could get Danica in for a follow-up podcast reviewing you, but I don't think we'll do that. We'll skip over
that. She'll working on me.
No, but I know you two have been working very closely, and she is great to work with. Let's just say that for the record.
Everyone in DevX team is great to work with.
Oh, you're too kind.
It is.
But so, I mean, was there a particular reason or something that interested you about getting involved in the Kafka side of things?
I didn't know what Kafka is before coming into Confluent. Let's say before my interview with Confluent. And
okay.
I know Confluent is a great company to work with, but I really didn't know what the product is for Confluent. But the interview opportunity showed up in front of me. I started to learn what Kafka is, what Confluent is doing, and I started to see the business value inside Confluent. Why it's so important to developers, why it's so important to businesses, right? Especially those have demand with fault tolerant and highly elastic message queue stuff.
So yeah, because I wonder, there must be a lot of people listening to this thinking, okay, well, they've got some maybe junior developers coming in or someone about your experience. What is it that we should be teaching them that matters about this? So from what you've learned, what would you say to someone with a similar level of experience to yourself? What are the things to grasp mentally from it all?
Well, I think Confluent Developer 101 course is really helpful. Setting it up straight for me. Thanks to Tim Berglund, I had a very holistic picture of what Kafka is before coming in. I think the best way to get to know Kafka is to start trying to build a project with Kafka and see what Kafka can do with your project. And that's what I did for my second project. Once I get familiarized with building a data pipeline using Kafka, I started to build my own project with a purpose to educate our developer advocates. Well, educate seems like too much of a selfish word. It seems like a big word to use.
No, not at all. You've learned some things. You're sharing them. That's all education is.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm qualified enough to say educating people, as I'm
okay.
Fresh rookie here.
Okay, let's move on from the humility. Tell me what you built.
Well, the second project is building a microservice architecture application with Kafka, and that's kind of inspired by Dave Klein's microservice pizza application. And
I've seen that one.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I can build something more interesting than building a pizza. Sorry, Dave Klein, but well, that was a very good project. But I was thinking maybe I can do something a little bit more complicated than that. So I decided to use microservice application to build sentiment analysis on Reddit. So my application prompts user to give a request on which subreddit they want to analyze in a specific time range. And with my microservice architecture, the application first pull Reddit threads from Reddit API, and then flows through the Apache Kafka topics and microservices upon the sentiment score on each of the subreddit thread, and calculate average in the end, and figure out a way to display it in front of our user.
Okay, so you are splitting out the idea of gathering a large amount of data,
Yes.
then somehow processing that in probably quite a time-consuming way, sentiment analysis.
Oh, actually, no. It's a
Oh, is it not?
Yeah, it processes pretty fast.
Okay, but it's something you wanted to separate out from the gathering phase.
What do you mean a gathering phase? Oh, yeah.
Like the phase where you gather the data in from Reddit, you've got that as a separate thing to let's process this and analyze it.
Yes, they are separated microservices.
And then from there, it dumps some data, the analysis output, and you think about displaying it separately.
Yes. Those are from different microservice application, and they communicate through Apache Kafka topics.
That's kind of a juicy enough template kind of application for this kind of thing. It's something we'll all end up doing in one shape or form.
Yes.
If you're dealing with Kafka in anger, right?
Right.
I have to ask this. Did you do that because you thought it was the right solution to the problem, or because you wanted to exercise the system and get a feel for it, or both?
So I want to build a data pipelines from scratch completely on myself, because the first project is building upon Danica's project, and for the second project, I really want to do something that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy doing the extending Danica's project, but I want to have something from my own, and to think about something interesting and what I've learned from university. Sentiment analysis came up to me, and I started to think from there, how do I integrate Kafka application with sentiment analysis? Right? I talked to a lot of people, and here's the problem I can solve with Apache Kafka and with microservices.
Okay, so and it's a good one, I think. The kind of what is the sentiment behind a Reddit thread or a subreddit? That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes,
because I think we can probably all think of a couple of subreddits where we know the sentiment just from the topic, right? It's a very polarized place sometimes.
Well, the worst subreddit is politics. I think that's no.
Yeah,
you always.
I think regardless. Yeah, I think regardless of people's politics, they probably agree that the politics subreddit is pretty spicy. Let's use that word.
That's a good word. That's a good word choice. Well,
but
on the other hand, I think Sorry. On the other hand, I think one of the benefit of map application is to provide a way to quantify sentiment from a time range, right? You can, when you go over social media, you feel like I can feel the bad vibe, I can feel the positive vibe. Looking through the thread, right? But it's hard to quantify and compare those sentiment. And thanks to Kafka and the microservices, my application actually provides a pretty good way to summarize and quantify them, and maybe for user to compare them.
Yeah, because that's what gets really interesting, something like that, where you're automating comparing lots of different threads or lots of different subreddits, right? And getting a quantitative balance between them, I would think.
Well, another example is analyzing the same subreddit but over different times.
Okay.
One example is like there's all kind of sports subreddits, and the sentiment when the team is on a winning streak is probably different from the sentiment when the team is on a losing streak. I had one example shown in my in a blog that is coming out soon, So stay tuned.
Okay, we'll link to that in the show notes. I would have thought. I mean, I'm not really a sports person, but I would have thought at the start of each season, all the supporters are really optimistic, and you've got a varying length window for the team to actually do well before they all start trashing on the team.
Well, that really
Are there
depends
any
on
patterns
different
like that?
teams. Well, before the season starts, there's a bunch of preseason games, and if your team performed well in those preseason games, the sentiment is probably higher, right? But that really depends on each teams.
So is sports the sentiment that you personally wanted to get to?
Yes, and
That's your hobby topic.
yes, and I really want to see. I would really want to use that as an example to test if my sentiment application works, and luckily it worked, just the way I thought.
Test in what way?
Whether the sentiment is accurate, because I can choose a time period when my team is doing great, and quantify the sentiment and compare them to a period of time that the team is doing bad. And you can look at the negative score, which is significantly higher when the team is doing bad.
Right. So you're testing it against your experience and intuitions about the team's
Yes.
performance.
Right.
Right. Okay, I see. Did you find any other interesting patterns from the data?
Well, it really depends on the subreddit, right? And another interesting stuff is maybe, are you playing video games?
Yep, sometimes.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Probably more than I should.
Well, there's some video games that really get their fans hyped up before releasing, and well, unfortunately, sometimes when the game get released, the fans start to realize it's not what the marketing team promised to be, and the sentiment drop. So that's another example of how people react on social media.
Oh, yeah. Do you know, that makes me think change in sentiment over time. I would love to see this project run against a few NFT projects. Because I'm not blanket covering all of them, but some of them are hype trains that build and crash, right?
Well, I mean, there's blockchain subreddits, and there's some of the stock investing subreddit. It's really interesting to see their reaction over time, right?
Yeah. I wonder if it ever leads. I mean, if you could use that change in sentiment on Reddit to analyze where you think the market's going to go.
I doubt it, but I think it's a good application.
I mean, I think you've come up with a good project because it sparks questions that you then want to use the tool to answer, right?
Well, go ahead.
You've written this up and you're going to publish the source code, right?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe you should talk to us. So it's going to be there for people to try out and try their own predictions. Talk to us a bit more about how it's built. Like, what language did you use? What are the services actually coded as? That kind of thing.
I used Python for each of the microservices, and there are, I think, 4 microservices. The first one is to get user input for the each request. Each request consists of a subreddit name and a start date and end date. And after that microservices, that the request will be appended as a message onto a Kafka topic. And then another microservice called API Poller will consume that message from the previous topic, and then pull all the subreddit thread accordingly. Once that happens, they will append all the thread to another topic, which will be consumed by sentiment analysis. The sentiment analysis microservice is just append sentiment score to each of the thread. And
how does that work? Let's just slow down on that one a bit. How do you calculate a sentiment?
I just use one very convenient Python package called NLTK. It's 3 sentences of Python code. You can you can check it out on my repo.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, so you get sentiment score.
that the sentiment score append to each of the subreddit thread, and then I use KSQLDB to calculate the average from the streaming data. So after I create another table on KSQLDB, that table also corresponds to another Kafka topic, which I will use to consume from my last application called display. That is to consume.
Good name.
Yeah, very intuitive, but that is to consume the Kafka table, K table from KSQLDB, and display the results to our user.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I can see how that pipeline puts together. I can also, I think, see how that would scale quite well.
Well,
have you load tested it at all?
I have not, but I built this application just to make sure that it can scale well with microservice architecture and Apache Kafka, which is built to be fault intolerant and with high elasticity.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how the architecture would lend itself towards that kind of scale, which I think probably most of our listeners will be able to see, I would hope. But there's finite time in the day, and definitely finite time when you're an intern, right? So you probably haven't load tested that hugely in anger.
Well, maybe I should try to do that and put it in my blog. Because the purpose of that is to make sure microservice is to show people that microservice and Apache Kafka is such a good combination for for making an application that is very easy to expand horizontally.
So I'm assuming you would. What's the primary key on all those partitions? What's the key? Is it the subreddit?
For the request ID, the key is for this user input, the first topic, that's request ID. So each request has a unique ID, and I will use that for aggregation later on in KSQLDB.
Oh, right. Okay. So yeah. So you could shard it by user request.
Right.
You could scale it per user request.
So
that makes sense.
Each request is actually unique for in this application.
Okay. I like this as an intern project. This feels very tasty to me.
Thank you. And
did you enjoy working on it?
I do. I bumped into a lot of technical questions, and as I said, it's a good way to practice finding the balance between reading docs and bothering people. And I always choose the easy way to bother people. Thank you everyone in the DevX team for being bothered by me constantly.
So, what do you think are the most important things you learned from an internship in the industry?
Well, the first thing I learned is what is DevX, right? And I think the most important stuff is to learn Kafka and Confluent Cloud, and try to figure out the use case with Kafka. And I think at the end of the day, only technical stuff really matters in career growth. There's a lot of practice time for soft skills, but I really the most important thing I think to get away from internship is the technical stuff that I learned. That is the Kafka.
Right.
Right.
So that's good, I think, because I think the heart of what we do in DevX has to be development, right? It has to be software engineering.
And, one thing that I like about DevX team is that you have to constantly learn new stuff and try to pick up the new technology really fast. And that's one thing that I really enjoy being a developer advocate is I have opportunity to get exposed to technology that are new, that are interesting, and keep thinking how I can integrate those technology with Apache Kafka.
Yeah. That's something I enjoy about it. You get to be very technical, but you get to be imaginative and thinking like, how can I how can I fit these ideas together and explain them and use them in interesting ways? And how can I cheat and get paid to build things that I find interesting?
Well, okay. I don't know. That's something that we can discuss publicly, but yes, I agree with you.
I think it serves both sides. To be honest, I think you are most interesting talking about the things that you find interesting. So, yeah, I think you've chosen a great project in that it's something you find inherently interesting and useful, and so would I actually. I think I might have to check out your code and play around with it.
Well,
there are some synthesizer subreddits I'd like to analyze.
Well, let me know, and we can do a demo together.
Oh yeah, absolutely, in the future. So I kind of want to wrap up by asking you a couple of questions that you may not be able to answer 100% honestly, but I'm going to ask them anyway and see how unguarded you're feeling.
Okay.
Would you work in DevX again when you finish your masters? And would you work for Confluent again? And would you use Kafka again? All three of those. You can be as honest as you like about any of them.
I would definitely work for DevX team and Confluent. It's been such a great experience. I enjoy talking to everyone in this team, and everyone is so supportive and helpful to me. I think this is a great place for me to grow in terms of career and in terms of learning new stuff. I probably will write more code as software developer, but I definitely will learn more tech stuff, tech stack with DevX team. And in terms of Apache Kafka, I don't see why not. It's the best message queue that put your data in motion. That's a bad word to describe Apache Kafka. It's not a message queue, but it's like a message queue, right? But it's a great tool.
It's everybody kind of a superset.
Yes, that's what I use for the microservices. I use that as a message queue, but it can do a lot more than being a message queue.
Yeah, I put you on the spot there, so thank you for fielding those questions. I'll say from my side, it's been really great working with you. I wish you could stick around longer.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll see you on the podcast sometime in the future.
Oh wow!
When you're out analysing the sentiments of sports teams in a way that, you'll probably be cast in the sequel to Moneyball one day. That's my prediction.
Wow!
Did you see that film? That's a really good film.
I did not, but
you've got to see that film. It's all about data and numerical analysis of sports. Okay. You'd love it.
That's my dream job. Yeah. Oh my god.
Cool. On that, Shufan, great talking to you. Thanks for joining us on Streaming Audio.
Thank you.
I'll catch you soon.
Wow.
Cheers. Thanks. Well, by the time you hear this, Shufan is going to be back in academia. Will he be writing his thesis on real-time sentiment analysis? Will he be arguing about basketball online? I don't know. Both, I hope. Yeah. Whatever it is, good luck, Shufan. It was great having you around here, and I wish you all the best. If you would like to check out his code and play with it, or read the blog post he's written about the project, check the links in the show notes. And if you want to build your own streaming data application, then check out Confluent Developer, which is where you'll find a wealth of resources for learning about event streaming and Apache Kafka with Python, Go, Java, JavaScript, loads more. Check it out at developer.confluent.io. And to make the most of that knowledge, you're going to need a Kafka cluster, so you can try spinning one up at confluent.cloud, which is our Kafka cloud service. You can sign up and have a cluster running reliably in minutes, and if you add the code podcast100 to your account, you'll get some extra free credit to run with. Meanwhile, if you've enjoyed this episode, then do click like and subscribe and the rating buttons and all those good things. It helps people that like this kind of information to find us, and it also helps us know which episodes you want to hear more of, which topics you want us to explore in more detail. And if you want to get in touch with me directly, as always, my Twitter handle's in the show notes. And with that, it just remains for me to thank Shufan Liu for joining us and you for listening. I've been your host, Chris Jenkins, and I will catch you next time.